The story of this man who became one of the most powerful mobsters in New York started when he was just a 13-year-old kid. He had no other option but to join a gang or get bullied by them every day on his way home from school. And that gang was led by a ruthless boss named Fat Tony Salerno. Salerno was so ruthless that even the police were afraid of him. They called him the real Don Vito Corleone, because he reminded them of the fictional character from The Godfather. But even though he was a mobster, he wasn't violent unless you crossed him, and he treated young children with respect. That's why, when Charlie, the 13-year-old kid, joined his gang, he took him under his wing and taught him everything about being a mobster, like how to throw punches that could knock out a grown man, how to lie to the police, and even how to make money through illegal activities. And it seemed like everything was going well for Charlie. He got all the women he wanted. He had lots of money, and he even became friends with Fat Tony's son. But everything changed when he fell in love with a woman named Mary. She was an angel sent from heaven. And Charlie knew he wanted to marry her and start a family with her. So he decided to leave the gang life behind and start a legitimate business. He wanted to be a good husband and father, and not a violent mobster. But when he told Fat Tony about his plans, the boss didn't take the news well. Gave Charlie two options: either leave the gang and never come back, or get killed. And as much as Charlie didn't want to be a mobster anymore, he couldn't let Fat Tony kill him without putting up a fight. That's how their battle began. A war between old and new, where a young man who didn't want to be a mobster anymore had to use all the skills that Fat Tony taught him to defeat him. And now, I'll tell you all about it. But before we begin, remember that the best way to support us is by liking this video. It takes less than 2 seconds and helps us grow. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. Thanks. Charlie had been planning his escape for months. He saved every dollar he earned from working as a bouncer at a local bar and used that money to buy weapons and hire people to help him. And even though Fat Tony found out what Charlie was up to, he didn't stop him. He was too busy trying to take over the entire city with his gang. He wanted to control everything from gambling to drugs to prostitution, and he believed that killing Charlie would send a message to the other members of his gang that they shouldn't try to betray him either. It was a cold winter night when Charlie made his move. He had assembled a team of 30 men and women who were ready to do whatever it took to take down Fat Tony. Their first target was Fat Tony's home. Charlie had planted bombs all around the house, and when his men and women gave the signal, they exploded. Fat Tony survived, but he was furious. He immediately gathered his men and told them to find Charlie and bring him to him dead or alive. That's when the real battle began. Charlie's men and Fat Tony's men fought each other in the streets, in the bars, and even in the houses. It was a brutal and bloody war that lasted for weeks. Charlie lost many good men and women during the fighting, but he knew he couldn't give up. He had to win this war, not only for himself, but for everyone who had ever been hurt by Fat Tony. As time went on, more and more people joined Charlie's side. He had become a symbol of hope for everyone who was tired of Fat Tony's violence and corruption. And then something happened that nobody had expected. The police started helping Charlie. They'd been watching the war between him and Fat Tony, and they realized that Fat Tony had to be stopped. So they gave Charlie some much-needed support, including weapons and intelligence. Finally, the day came when Charlie and his men cornered Fat Tony in his hideout. It was a tense standoff that lasted for hours, but in the end, Charlie came out on top. Fat Tony was arrested and sent to prison where he belonged. From that day on, Charlie became the most powerful mobster in New York. He had won the war, and now it was time to rebuild. He helped the people of New York to take back their city from the mob, and he also made sure that Fat Tony's men were brought to justice. But despite all the power and respect he had earned, Charlie never forgot where he had come from. He never forgot the 13-year-old boy who had joined a gang to protect himself from bullies. He used his power to help other young people who were in danger, and he also made sure that no one ever had to join a gang to stay safe. One day, years after the war, Charlie was sitting in his office when he heard a knock on the door. He looked up and saw a young man standing there. The man was nervous and he was shaking as he spoke. "Mr. Luciano," he said, "I need your help." Charlie looked at the young man and saw the fear in his eyes. He knew that the young man had nowhere else to turn, so he invited him in and listened to his story. The The young man told Charlie that he was being bullied at school and that he was afraid to go back. He said that he had nowhere else to turn and that he didn't know what to do. Charlie listened patiently, and when the young man finished his story, he smiled. "Don't worry," he said. "I'm going to help you." Charlie knew exactly what to do. He called some of his old friends and put together a plan to help the young man. He knew that the school wouldn't take the bullying seriously, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. A few days later, the bullying stopped. The other kids had learned not to mess with someone who had friends in high places. The young man was grateful for Charlie's help, and he thanked him over and over again. Charlie just smiled and told him that he didn't have to thank him. "Just remember," he said, "that you're not alone. There are people who care about you and want to help you." From that day on, Charlie continued to use his power to help others. He opened schools and hospitals and charities, anything he could do to make the world a better place. He never forgot the 13-year-old boy who had joined a gang to protect himself from the world. And he spent the rest of his life making sure that no one had to go through that ever again. Even though he became one of the most powerful mobsters in New York, his name was never written anywhere except on bullets. Nobody knew who he really was. For everyone else, he was just a legend, a myth, a whisper in the wind. But those who knew him, those who had seen him in action, they knew who he was. They knew that he was the man who had taken down Fat Tony and saved New York City. They knew that he was the man who had shown them that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. And that's the story of Mafia. His name wasn't written anywhere except on bullets. Now, tell us in the comments. What did you think of this story? If you liked it, remember to hit that like button. It's free and helps us grow. Also, subscribe if you haven't already. We release new videos every day, and you won't miss any of them that way. Thanks for watching.